Welcome back to the sauce. I missed you, Kevin. It's been too long. We've taken a little 2 week hiatus. It's probably too early for us to go on a hiatus, but we did. But we're back,
hmm
and I'm glad to see you again, my friend.
You too, man.
We're,
Miss you
we're
too, brother. This was long overdue, but we're back now. So
we are, and we're going to talk about Florida State football, obviously. But the topic for this week is kind of whether or not this game against Miami on Saturday is really do or die. It kind of feels like it, certainly for Florida State's playoff hopes. But if you go back to the where Florida State was before the season, I don't know that anybody saw this season as a season where you've got to go to the playoff or not. So it's kind of a strange place right now. First of all, I guess let's start there, Kevin. What do you think about the idea that this game is somewhat of a do or die? Like if Florida State wins, they're back in the hunt. They would only have one loss. They'd have a win over Miami. They'd have the head-to-head edge with Miami, which could have ACC playoff or championship game implications. You'd also have two huge wins. You'd have a win over a top 10 Alabama team and a top 5 Miami team. You'd be right there. Now you'd have to play out the string. You have to keep getting wins, but you're in great shape there. If you don't, uh, how do you see things shaking out? Like if Florida State doesn't win this game, uh, does it feel like a huge loss? Does it feel like the season might be not gonna say over, but you feel like the goals are just demonstrably gone based on that one game?
no, I don't think the goals are affected in. Okay, the goals are affected in a way if you lose this game to Miami. I don't think they're gone. I think that things have to play out in your favor, but in the odds of a college football season, in the way that they have always played out, I feel good about if you were to win out. I'm not pie in the sky and predicting. I think we lose to Miami and we're winning the next games. I just say if you do that, you're sitting in a situation at 10-2 with two ACC losses, which you don't want to do. You're probably not in the ACC championship game. And where are you in the ratings is where it comes down to. And then a 12 team playoff, you are going to be rewarded, even though you've been hit for it in the past for your brand not being big enough to carry it against the four teams when you get snubbed. You are going to be in that top 12 if you're up against some team that is just looking at it. In my opinion, I think the playoffs going to take Florida State in a heartbeat over a lot of mid-tier Power Four teams or any Power Five teams that aren't automatic bids in any situation like that. And a 10-2 Florida State team, if you can just remove yourself from the emotions that will come with a Miami loss after a Virginia loss, and you can get to the end of the season where you've actually rattled off the rest of your season, I don't see why that can't be sitting right there at a 10, top 10 to top 15 team in the country. With the way that the season's playing out, everyone's losing a game or two. Like, I mean, we don't see a dominant team out there. Oh, maybe Ohio State, but do we feel that they're just going to run the table on everyone that they're going to play all year? Maybe, but I don't see Alabama's and Georgia's of the past that are in there because of the way the transfer portal has been able to move people across and spread the talent across versus being stockpiled on one team or another.
What I man, it's so early to predict, but like if you go through that scenario as you're saying, so maybe Florida State doesn't make the ACC championship game, but they're trying to get as an at large as at 10-2. I hear you intellectually that makes some sense and it seems possible because you would have wins over Alabama and Florida and Gainesville and Clemson on the road. I mean, that's a pretty good resume. If your only losses are in double overtime at Virginia on a Friday night and a Virginia team that may end up being a ranked type team, and if your other loss is a great game against Miami at home and Miami ends up living up to the billing, then yeah, the resume is probably there. I'm curious though, what happens with the rest of the ACC because we know they're not going to take a bunch of ACC teams, and Georgia Tech may run the table. I mean, they're going to be favored in every game they play. Miami, we'll see if Mario pulls a Mario or if they run the table. We don't know. Some of these teams don't play great schedules in the conference, and so Virginia is another one. I mean, I don't expect Virginia to go very far. I think they're going to lose some games, but Louisville. There are some teams in this conference that might be in that conversation too. And I agree that Florida State's a better brand, and I think Florida State's resume would be great. But you might have teams that finish with better conference records that I think would be interesting. The losing team in the ACC championship game could be a factor. So when you said the brand, Florida State was hurt for their brand, I don't think they were hurt for their brand. They were hurt for the ACC brand, and that might still be a factor.
Certainly. With what you just said, there's certainly a lot of scenarios with how the college football playoff has to seed teams and at-large bids and who they're going to want to take. And they're not going to want to take too many teams from certain conference. And they're certainly not going to want to take a lot from the ACC because of its lacking of talent. So they're maybe taking two teams from that. My projection of finishing 10-2 is very much what you said, assuming Miami takes care of business and is in the playoff. And that is very much assuming that Alabama's in the playoff, which they can afford to lose another game, assuming it's not someone terrible. And you can argue even a terrible loss for them is going to be enough because the rest of their schedule. So, yeah, we're not going to have a reward sitting there. We're not going to have anything over anyone to take us. But I think it would be enough just that I don't think there's going to end up being 15 teams that have two losses. I think
Yeah,
we're going to
no,
have a lot of
yeah,
three-loss teams, but are those three-loss teams getting picked off and taken over that 10-2 Florida State team because their big win is at the very beginning of the season and not much since then.
yeah, and I think the one challenge, again, I go back to that scenario with. You're right. I mean, these teams in the ACC are not going to all go undefeated. The year FSU went to the ACC championship game in 2023, I remember there were all these questions about, well, what if this team does this? What if and I just remember telling people they're not all going to keep winning. That it just never happens, and so you don't need to worry about it usually. And so I agree with you. But like Georgia Tech's could be a fly in the ointment, and but I don't know what they would do. Say Georgia Tech finishes with one loss, um, I think you make a case that Florida State's resume is still better. Again, I think that especially and they'd have the quality losses on their side, Kevin. That's you always want the
Yeah.
quality losses on your side. I don't know if any team in the ACC is allowed to claim those, but I think those would qualify. But I want to flip to the other side of this, though, looking at it from a different perspective. And you can take us back there if you have more to say. But like the other thing that's weird about this right now is I don't know that it's it's like that Alabama game. It twisted everything. It put everything on its head in the sense of, we never would have said going back 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, we never would have sat here and said, well, if Florida State doesn't beat Miami, if they're not, undefeated or only one loss after Miami, this season's a wash. We went into the season, I think most people went into the season saying, man, can they get to 8-4? Can they just be respectable? Can they get to 8-4, maybe 9-3? That would be awesome. Like I don't know how many FSU fans were realistically. You always want to make the playoff, but until they beat Alabama, very few FSU fans I think were even had the playoff on their radar. Then you beat Alabama, and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh wait a minute, this team may win the ACC. They may go to the playoff, which was great. But then it's not great if then 3 weeks later you think your season's over because you lost the game to Miami. Um,
Correct.
that's a weird thing to kind of reconcile, I think.
Hope is upsetting. It can be.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, and when you said it earlier, I was thinking we may have even discussed it. Maybe it wasn't on the podcast, but get me to 3-1 before the Miami game, and let's compete for that game. That was my expectation of the year. Get me to 3-1. It'd be great if you got an Alabama win, and then if you do that, you're probably going to be 4-0 because who you losing to? Like that was my expectation.
Right.
And then the expectation happened. We went 3-1, but we got the Alabama win. And I think I don't know. It's really hard because I'm sitting there watching, Eastern Texas A&M, and I'm watching Kent State, and I'm like, okay, well, we dominating them beyond belief, but that doesn't mean anything until the next game, and you do something about it, and you win the games you're supposed to win, and then you went out I don't know. It's a confusing back and forth because you're looking at a team that really did fight there and they didn't lay down and they got down to a team they shouldn't have got down to. And there's so much encouragement in that loss, but you still have that loss. And if you pile it on with another loss back to back, emotions are going to get high. And even if there is all that 10-2 sitting at the end of the season, will it be enough for the players to still believe and to buy in to recognize that still is out there and is the dangling carrot enough versus now if you beat Miami, there's nothing lost. We're going to be back in the top 12 currently next week if we beat Miami. Why would you go down from there? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like if that's the expectation, you're set. So it's realize that even a loss to a very good Miami team and everything is still probably on the table versus it's absolutely on the table with a win this weekend. Where I think because you're looking at the emotions of a loss and a loss, oh,
Right.
it's the season's over. The season's over, and it's so easy to do that because on Saturday, if we're losing, I'm going to be feeling the same thing that I'm saying I shouldn't be feeling. You know,
Well, let me ask you this. So, because I think what's interesting about that game, and you because you just said it, that there were a lot of things you liked about the Virginia game, and that was the weird thing. Like when Corey and I did our wrap on the field after the game, Corey had some positive vibes about the game.
Corey Clark,
Corey Clark, you've heard of him?
positive,
He oh
positive vibes.
he had some positive vibes after the game. Go back and watch the
Okay,
Corey was
positive and encouraging Corey. I like
Corey,
it.
he threw me for a loop. I wasn't ready for it either. Um, but I honestly I had a hard time with how to convey, my feelings for that game because yeah, man, it is good that you get down 14-0 and you don't quit. You come back and take the lead of the game. You don't finish the half the way you need to. So you end up being in that dogfight for the second half. And then there were some things I didn't love. I didn't love a couple of the play calls. I didn't love some of the things that happened late in that game. But there are positives. There are positives. I mean, first of all, you put up 500 yards of offense on the road. I mean, that's pretty impressive against any defense. Certainly a conference defense. Um, the way they fought, the way they competed, even when they weren't playing didn't have their A game. They still were kind of trying to grind it out. I thought all that's positive, but you still lost to Virginia in a game that now makes this game feel like this playoff game. And even if you win against Miami, and as you said, that you've kind of got the good taste back in your mouth, and now everything's still ahead of you, but now you basically have seven more playoff games. I mean, like because
And the
you're
intensity is that same way. The
yeah.
intensity is going to be more towards Virginia than that Miami and the Alabama game.
Well, that's the question, and so what's realistic, and then and again, I mean, I love the playoff era. I'm glad we have it. I think it stunk that so many years if Florida State lost one game, the season's over. Like you can't get back in. That was ridiculous. But I also think like you look at this scenario and it's like I wonder how they're going to handle that. Because all right, so you were impressed by the way they competed against Virginia, even though they weren't playing well. What do how do you think this team handles it? And I know neither one of us has like the heartbeat of this team. We can't know for sure, but like, do you think they'll be able to get off the mat and believe that there is a season to play for, and maybe, you know, who knows what happens if you go 10-2? Like, do you feel like from what you've seen of these guys that they will have the right mindset to not go in the tank?
Mhm.
We don't
I
know.
think, yeah, it's all speculation. I think, I feel confident that we're going to have the right mindset and we're going to go out there and compete Saturday. And I don't say that as like, oh, we're going to compete. I mean that we're going to compete and we're going to be in the game. And it's going to be a fourth quarter game, and we have every right to win it, just like they're going to have every right to win it. I don't expect to win. I don't expect a loss, but I expect a game. And I think that's going to be because the mindset of what I think we'll see versus what I did see on Saturday or Friday against Virginia. Like what I saw there is not what I want, but it doesn't mean that that's going to be the same thing in a brand new game. Each game is individual, and the course of the season and how a team gets to the end of the season is a magical journey that no one's privy to except for the fans of that team. You can be like, "Oh my goodness, you see the record this year?" But if you're not watching how this played out, you don't know. So there's plenty of games against teams that you deserve to just absolutely smash, and you don't, but you get the win anyway, or you get the loss. It just all games going to play out different ways. I feel confident we go in there and compete and are in the fourth quarter in a game against Miami. I can't answer the question on what happens if we're to lose that game and what that mindset would be like in the locker room because back to back, it's one of those, it's a perfect storm scenario where I think it's great that we're playing Miami and there's a huge game on the line right after Virginia. I think that's perfect for us. We got that little extra day. I know they had their bye, but we're talking about us. I think it's great that we have to get our focus all the way back right now, but that can also tumble us and you go out and lose that game. And now you've got two losses in a row, which, 10-2 over the course of a season spread out is a little more easy to buy in that we've still got a chance, I think. Again, this is high level, just trying to think out how the season plays out, how the seasons have played out in the context of a 12-team playoff. Because I think that number is huge. The number is huge of teams getting in the playoff this year. And I don't think we realize, I don't know, we don't know how it's going to play out,
Yeah,
who they're going to want to put in there.
a lot of teams are going to lose. A lot of teams will have
Mm-hmm.
bad losses. I mean, it's just going to happen. That's just the nature of it, the way it is right now. Um, I think there's a couple things that might be in FSU's favor if we're trying to figure out how they're going to handle this. I think there's a couple things about this roster that make me feel good about the chance of if they don't win. Um, and again, the reason we're focusing on that is because the premise is this a make or break game? Is this a do or die game? And so we have to kind of look at that side of it. Certainly, there's a very good chance Florida State wins the game. And if they do, then that's a different challenge. But if they lose, I think a couple things I would say are positives in the favor of why I think this team might hang together and keep putting together good efforts. One is you do have a lot of guys that are coming back. And it's not like a team where it's all seniors. The 2023 team, when they got snubbed and all those guys bailed on the Orange Bowl, the reason that kind of happened is that team was all seniors. Like it was all or draft eligible juniors that were going to go. So of the 22 starters plus the two kickers, I would say 85% of them probably knew that was like they were done. They were leaving after this season. So there wasn't, once you took away their playoff opportunity, really they just didn't see what's the point. I need to go get ready for the NFL. This team does have a bunch of guys that are going to have a chance to come back next year, including Tommy Castellanos. I know there's some debate about whether or not he can get an extra year. I'm pretty confident he'll get that extra year of eligibility. So if he is planning to come back and he voices that to his players, that's a real strong guys. Let's stick together. We can still do great things, win a bunch of games. Plus, it's going to help us for next season. But there's a bunch of guys like that. I don't know that Deuce. We'll see. Deuce Robinson, is he a one and done guy at Florida State, or does he use his last year, come back next year? Randy Pittman's a junior. I don't know that Randy Pittman's a high draft pick because of his measurables. So he's a guy that maybe comes back next year. You're going to lose a bunch of the offensive linemen, but a bunch of the defensive linemen, the Desir twins, everybody loves. There's Kevin Wynn. There's a bunch of young guys on that defense. And the linebackers have a bunch of guys that would come back, and the secondary has a bunch of guys that would come back. So from that standpoint, it's not like these guys are going to just be riding out into the sunset because they know they didn't make the playoff. Like most of these guys, a good chunk of these guys are going to be coming back next season. And so I would think that weighs into, especially Tommy, right? Like if Tommy is
Correct.
coming back and voices that, you would think that's going to carry a lot of weight.
Well, something I thought about when you were saying that, and it's a little aside from what the topic of the show is, but if you move on to next year and you think about if you're able to however the season plays out, but you're able to hang on and you go 9-3, you go 10-2, and it's announced that Tommy's able to come back and or he has voice that he wants to, if it's verbal and that's in the locker room, even if it's not public knowledge. The advertisement that bowl game is going to be for come on, come on. The advertisement that bowl games will be for transfers these days is about all it's going to be. In specifically the scenario of a team that's on the rise and it's like, oh, we got a turnover. Let's bring in a couple pieces, and we're going to be in the playoff next year. We're going to be that team that's going to fight for the playoff next year. I don't think it's like every bowl game is an ad for your team to come play at my team or your player to come play at my team. I don't think it's every bowl game. It's those teams that can flip that next year and add a piece or two or three or four or quarterback away and go and make something of the playoff.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think the thing with when you look at, again, this Florida State team is they're because I wrote that this week in my 3-2-1 column, I wrote that the unfortunate thing, it's a great thing. The landscape today, the big positive is it's not just a two-team playoff. It's not just the BCS national championship game. And it's not even just a four-team playoff. Now you do have 12 teams getting in, so you can absorb a loss and have a chance. Maybe you can absorb two losses and get in. So that's a real positive. The downside to it though is because these rosters are so flexible or malleable, fluid, that you don't keep a team together for 2 or 3 or 4 years. You'll lose some of that growth that happens over the course of seasons. And the comparison I made, and you'll remember this, was 2011. That Florida State team loses 3 games early in the season, that 3-game losing streak. But then they kind of find themselves. They went through a bunch of injuries. EJ got hurt. A bunch of other guys were hurt. They get healthy. They go to the Champs Bowl against Notre Dame. They play those young offensive linemen. And that was like this huge springboard into the next season because they made that youth movement on the offensive line. They had, EJ was be coming back that next year. You had so many guys coming back for 2012. So that set the stage for what ended up being, a 2012 team that was a great team and probably could have won it all if they didn't stumble at NC State. But then they learned from that lesson in 2013, and then you win the national title. And it's like you had that progression. And it's unfortunate now that a lot of times you're not going to have those progressions because so many players are going to be coming and going every season. But I think maybe if you can keep that nucleus together, and if you do have the Tommy and a lot of these other pieces coming back, all these young running backs that they've got coming back, if you bring all these guys back next year, well, now you did learn from that experience at Virginia. Like that, you have at least enough guys who went through that experience and know that, yeah, man, even if you're not as good as that team, if you're playing on the road, you have to take care of business. Every detail does matter because you don't want to leave it to where it's coming down to the final play. So from that standpoint, I guess I'm trying to, in my mind, why I think this season, even if it doesn't go well Saturday for Florida State, can really still matter because it could be the building blocks to, a really special year
100%.
next year.
Well, I think not to hit on our favorite topic, culture again, but I think that what you said right there is it's like it's a great point, but it makes it more confusing. It's like all you need in your locker room is enough people to believe. What's the number for enough? Don't know. Couldn't tell you. You don't know until you have enough. It's like that's the situation because we thought we had enough last season. Thought we had enough culture. I'm sure that Mike didn't just abandon the idea of let's have our locker room be content with each other and like each other. I'm certain he didn't abandon it. He might not have focused on it like he did this year or he had in the past or however it's played out. But yeah,
I think he took some of it for granted. I think he's basically admitted that. Yeah.
right, took some of that for granted. And I think looking at it in the way and maybe taking it for granted and also it's a new playing field. Like I keep harping on how we are in a new college football era in the transfer portal. And yes, we've had the transfer portal for many years now, but it's a different thing every year. It changes every year. And he might have realized kind of what we're saying. It's you have to have the nucleus versus what you wanted with Bobby and what you wanted with Saban and different coaches that had it for a sustained period of time, and everyone kind of walked a certain way when they were in that program. You're going to have that same thing. You're going to have that nucleus, but it might not be that entire roster
Yeah, it may not
versus
be. Yeah, it may
that
not be
nucleus.
right. It may not be 18 returning starters and six other role players who played a lot. But and the
Right.
good thing about that is because
Yeah.
nobody's got that anymore. So it's to scale, right? You want to have as much of
100%.
a nucleus relative to what everybody else is dealing with. Um, yeah, and I think that's accurate. I think the
To your point of everyone else, that's a extremely important point. It's all relative to the rest of college football and what's happening there, and you can see it. There's more disparity on college football teams than there has been in the last 10 years for sure. Every year we started, there's 4 teams that could win. I mean, now there's like four. I mean, I know we're at the beginning of the season and teams will lose, but there's like 12 teams I look at and I'm like, I don't know if they're not the best team. I
right.
don't see a team out there. And this is the first time in a long time there has been one or two teams where you're like, yeah, but you got to get through them. Better hope they lose before the playoff, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know. I think there's just such a disparity in college football because of the way the transfer portal is, and you have to account for that when looking at your culture. You still have to have it and maintain it, but it's going to be much harder to have it across the board. And it's like I don't know. It's a focus that Mike clearly, like you said, has admitted to this year without saying. I didn't think about how the players liked each other without coming out saying that directly.
So if they win this game, let's go to the other side real quick.
Say when they win this game,
when they
because
win
we've
this
been
game,
harping on the losses. Yeah.
if they win this game, um, how likely do you think it is that they've learned the lesson from Virginia and can apply it in this season and run the table or give themselves at least a great chance to run the table? I mean, I think, we both think going to Clemson is going to be a challenge no matter what, even no matter what Clemson season looks like. Winning at Clemson is going to be tough. I'm not convinced Florida is going to be much of anything by that time. We'll see. So maybe that's a game you can win if you don't bring your A game, but you will bring your A game anyway because it's Florida. So at least in terms of physicality. So do you think this team is good enough? Because we can talk about it theoretically, the idea of just play the way you did against Alabama in all these other games. But the
Right.
reality is they're human beings. They're probably not going to have that same edge in all these other games.
Correct.
But are they good enough if they don't have that edge? What do you think the chances are right now? Even if they win this game, you still do you feel like the playoff is something that's attainable, or still just like, man, just try to win games and don't even worry about that right now? Like, how far did we get ahead of ourselves with that Alabama game? And
Right.
should, no matter what happens Saturday, should we not even really focus on that anymore?
I think going back to me saying I don't know who's good in college football, my read on it is we're absolutely just as good as anyone else, but we've got to figure out how to play somewhat close to the level that we played at Alabama. Um, but I feel strongly you go out and win the game against Miami. I feel strongly we're going to be in the playoff, even if that has a loss to Clemson. Because the Miami, my scenario of a loss to Miami and being 10-2 and making the playoff, which I still feel pretty good about, is emboldened by a Miami win and being 10-2. Because I see a Miami win is going to be a loss at NC State or a loss at Clemson. It's not going to be an egregious loss. I don't think that happens. Um, you can maybe skirt by with that NC State loss on the road, but I feel good about the win and afterwards. But I also reserve a little bit for how it plays out because I think there is a scenario we could win that game and still be a little shaky on how I think the season plays out. I don't think that plays out because I think Miami's a very good team and they're going to play well, so we're going to have to play well. Um, and if Miami's playing well, we win the game. That's going to show me that the rest of the season is going to be enough that we figured it out enough. I think it really does translate. It's not just it's tough to say with the intensity of those big games because we've seen teams that are capable of playing huge games and then not get up for anything else. And we have a lot of games that there's plenty of reasons to not get up for those games, even though you've already lost and that should be your wake up call. There's some sleepy games in the ACC,
Right. No, no.
and that those scare me more than the big games, really. Like,
Well, I
go.
think that's going to be something for Mike Norvell to prove he can manage, honestly, because that hasn't been a strong suit for him so far. Like he has gotten up for some big games. They've upset a bunch of teams during his tenure, but they've also not played great in a bunch of games where they were the better team or the favorite team. Even you look back at 2023, that wasn't a team that just steamrolled everybody they played. I mean, they kind of nail biter at the end against Boston College, ugly scuffled their way through the game against Pitt. There was a couple other games that season where they just were not. Certainly at the end, once Jordan got hurt, but even before that, the Miami game, they weren't dominant in that game. That team did not. That team didn't play with the just the reckless abandon that you want to see a team that's going to go 13-0. And not every team can do that, but and they won all those games. You give them credit for it. But I do think that's something on Mike Norvell's resume, besides the big picture, whether or not he's going to work out. I think that's something that this would be a good opportunity for him. If they beat Miami, I think that's a big step we want to see from Mike Norvell as a head coach is can you get your guys to bring it and win some of these games that, to your point, could be sleepy ACC games? Like, can you get these guys to because it's you don't have to it doesn't have to look like it did against Alabama, but there's something in between that and Virginia. Like
Right.
there's a spot to get in there. Let me ask you one more thing real quick, and we'll head out of here because I do think I'm glad we did this conversation because I do feel better. You've convinced me that they should not look at this as a do or die game. But you and I haven't talked really much. We've texted a little bit since the game against Virginia. You any thoughts you want to share about that Virginia game? Like, were you mad? I told you that Corey had some optimism afterwards. Where were you at after that game, and as just watching it play out?
Well, 2024 was numb. I would put it that way. I got numb in 2024, and I carried that over all the way through Alabama, all the way through East Texas A&M, all the way through Kent State. Just a big old numb, no feelings whatsoever.
After
Felt
Alabama, really?
something. Truly, Alabama. I was like, all right, let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Truly, I was like, let's see what we got. I was certainly happy. I was
Right.
joyous, but I felt no like
You weren't bought in.
wasn't bought in. I felt that it's there. I still feel it's there. I feel confident, but I still need to see things, right? I feel confident that it's there until I don't see it. But man, I felt some stuff on Friday.
Really?
Felt some stuff. And it was
You let
I don't
yourself
know.
care again.
I cared again. I cared again. I cared again. And they brought me in. The package they presented was perfect. It was like get down to a team you don't need to get down to. Quickly come back. All right, we're going to the half with the lead. That's all you need to get to. Nope, nope, no, we're not. Oh wait, no, 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 no. Pick six. We're gonna be up four. No, no, we're tied at 21. Not even too mad at that. Just a shame. We should have got it done. And then I mean, I kept texting my buddy, "Hey, I'm not scared. This game is still ours. I'm not scared. I'm not scared." And then I got scared, and I texted him, "Hey, I'm scared." It was it, in the second half. I just kept disheartening, just so disheartening to watch. Not necessarily to just get moved back, but just to efficiently move the ball on the ground against us
Yeah.
in a way that I thought is just not even possible after what we saw against Alabama and frankly against the other two teams that aren't any good. I mean, they had a run or two, they sprinkled out and juked and made a play, but like you weren't allowed to run on us in any of the games, and then Virginia had no issue. So that's extremely discouraging because what is Virginia got that Miami doesn't have already, and a lot bigger and a lot stronger and a lot higher praised recruits. Like I just don't know. So that's extremely discouraging. But I think on the bright side of that game, I think you saw a team that didn't lay down. Which how can you lay down? You're in the middle of a game and you're 3-0. You can't expect them to lay down. But they fought back. They get that tease there before the half, that pick six, and then it's tied 21. And then I'm not impressed again until very late in the fourth quarter. And this is something I was going to say earlier. I wanted to interrupt you, but I didn't. And it's like, it's worked out here. The gotta have it plays.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter that it's against Virginia. Florida State has had a history of making those and or not making those on extreme ends. They got teams that make them every time or 90% of the time, or they got teams that can't get off the field or that can't make that, can't get that first down. And they did that all Friday. They did it on a play that you can argue if it was caught or not. It's a crazy slow replay.
Yeah.
But they kept doing it and they didn't have enough. And there's no excuse. You lost the game. We're not, champions of our heart, but you are.
Shout out Butch, the
Shout out
champions of
Butch.
life.
He's head coach somewhere, right? Is
I
he at
don't
Arkansas State? I think.
could
I think
be.
he's somewhere. But anyway, I just think that we made a bunch of plays when you got to have them, and I don't really care that it was against Virginia because I think that shows that you have some guys that are willing to make plays when you got to have them. I don't want to have to make those plays against Virginia. There's no excuse for that, but it was the case, and that showed me something. So, encouraged in the first half with the fight and rallying on the road. Very much discouraged by, in general, the run game all the game, and then yeah, at the end, plays when you got to have it. Tommy keeps proving himself, and he's just a playmaker, and you this is something on quarterbacks. I think that's not really thought about. It's like you have a guy, especially at the college level, you have a guy that can do all these things like Tommy can do, but you have to know that every 12 balls, that ball's going nowhere near anyone
Mm.
and or in a defender's hand. And it's not a problem because you get all the plays in between that. Josh Allen is an extreme example of that where you're like, what was that? But then you see the elite accuracy on 40% of all throws, and you're like, how could you do that with the ball 65 yards down the field?
Right.
So it's like there's that, or there is that guy that's got such a lower ceiling, but you can count on him to do the exact same thing every time. 98% of the time, he's giving you that pass. He's hitting that 10-yard out. He's hitting that 10-yard out. So I think having a guy like that has continued to show you that he's trying to make a play every single time and fight for every yard he can get is extremely encouraging. I wish he wasn't put in that situation against Virginia, and it partly his fault too because he didn't have a good game outside of what I just said about occasionally being inaccurate. He had an inaccurate game. He did not have a good game outside of that occasional wandering ball, if you will.
Yeah, I
And
think.
I'm not discouraged by it, but I just mean he didn't have his good game.
I mean, he made a lot of plays. He did make a lot of plays.
I
Yeah.
I agree, and we're not in that game without him.
Right.
I'm saying his level, his highest level that he's capable of. I thought he was not close there, but that's kind of a moot point because if he doesn't, if he's not on the team, we're absolutely done on offense. If you
Right.
don't have him as a quarterback being the spark plug, this offense isn't doing relatively close to what he's doing with it.
Yeah, and I think the thing I always try to remind people when they, I think Jeff made a couple comments on headlines about, maybe one or two of the throws that Tommy missed. And it's like, yeah, man, if he was that athletic as he is, and he made every throw, he wouldn't be here. He wouldn't be at Florida State.
Right,
So
right,
you know it. You just know it's baked in,
correct,
right? You have to accept it.
correct. And I didn't hear what Jeff said on headlines. I guess
We just said that he just kind of was lamenting him missing some throws you got to have. It's like, yeah, man,
right.
he's not going to be that guy. I mean, he's not
Yeah,
going to
I
be.
guess
Yeah,
I don't feel that way in any way. I wasn't like sitting him in any way looking at him being like, "What's wrong with you?" Like I didn't
right.
think negatively from his performance. I just thought he could have played better, and he will play better, and he'll probably play like that again, and it'll probably be enough. I guess my point is like it's in no way his fault that that game is even in the balance. He did absolutely enough to win that game, but to his highest capabilities, I don't think he lived up to it. Was I guess what I'm saying, and I don't want to like back down from it. I just don't think he played as well as he can. But I think it was a high enough level for us to win the game by any means because
Yeah, and
you have to stop Virginia. You can't give up that many points to Virginia.
yeah,
Virginia.
and I think the point you made before about the gotta have it plays, that's huge. It didn't feel to me, if you think back to the 4th and 14s,
Mm-hmm.
first you got Chris Ricks to Dominic Robinson on their 4th and 14. That felt like completely found money because
Mm-hmm.
Chris Ricks, I don't know if in his entire tenure at Florida State career, how many square ins he hit like that.
Right.
I mean, it was just, where did that
Right.
come from? It's like, we've never seen that. And then the, pass from Jordan Travis to Andrew Parchment. I mean, Andrew Parchment didn't do much of anything that year, and he catches a 4th and 14 pass down to set up the winning touchdown against Miami. So I mean, like those were almost like out of
So
body,
true. Those are so true about free money. Of
right?
just like great. Where great.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, with the kid when you're playing pickup and the kid, who can't really shoot hits a three, banks in
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
three or
Yeah.
something.
Or the
But
coach going around third. Stop, 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 stop,
yeah,
stop. No, 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 no.
yes. but I didn't feel like these were found money,
Agreed. Yeah,
right?
I think
So
there was
that's
a, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is talk, right? So someone's going to hear this and be like, "Oh, it found money. What are you even talking about?" But absolutely, when you said that, I was like, "That's a really good point." And when you said found money for the first one with Chris Ricks, I was like, "Definitely that Andrew Parchment play." Because like, what did he do all year? Like when the ball went to him, I was like, "That's for sure caught." That's not my thought. My thought was that ball just going like straight up in the air off his chest for sure.
yeah,
But yeah, it was like it was the play that didn't even count was like we did. Yeah, we did it. The play to Deuce, like
yeah,
he threw a
yeah,
dot and he made a play and it was a
beautiful.
good route and it was like they
I
made
mean,
those
just put
plays
it on him. Just
and
put
I
it
think
on.
that's probably why I even brought it up, just subliminally what you're talking about. It's like I brought those up because they were taken. They weren't they weren't anything but taken from Virginia. Again, it's Virginia, but they were taken versus what was Miami doing?
Right,
What was Miami doing on that play? Legitimately. I'm asking you, can you analyze that play for me? What was Miami doing on that 4th and 14?
right.
Because
Yeah.
it's brutal. He just,
It was
oh,
it was
it was a
payback for the
punt.
time. It was payback for the time Jimbo had Derwin James covering a tight end, and while the Miami has a receiver in man coverage. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
another whole other story. Um, well, listen, man, this was a helpful conversation for me. I don't know, you might have come in feeling this way, but I do feel good about it. I feel like, and hopefully people will watch this and buy into what you're selling, Kevin. Because no, I think it's legit. I think it is legit. I think your path to the playoff, obviously, if you win the game, is everything's in your destiny, in your hands. You control your destiny. If you don't, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean you can't. It just means you just got to go on the hope and the promise that if you win all the rest of your games, you'll get back in there. But that's what you should do anyway. They should
yeah,
compete, and you do have a bunch of guys on this team. That was one thing that I think I liked coming out of this conversation. That was that you think about the fact you do have a bunch of these guys who would be back next year, so that may help keep this team on task as well. So I think we came away with some pretty positive vibes or positive an outlook. No matter what happens this Saturday, you agree? You feel good?
absolutely. I'm feeling good. Um, but I gotta apologize to my niece. Remember
Okay,
my niece with that wisdom, that pure wisdom.
she did. What was that? I remember she. I also
She
my
said
favorite
she
part of
said she
that.
was
My favorite part of that was when you said, I think you said you didn't remember her age, and then I asked you her age.
Yeah, and that's
But
why I'm apologizing because I would really like to send her a clip of me calling her out, but I need two clips because she's not 10 or 11. She's going to turn 14 in this month, like in a few. That's not true because this month is now October. Faith, I know it's November and I know you're going to be 14, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, Faith
Faith,
is going to be 14. She is 13 currently, and not even close to 10 or 11.
Faith, you got to understand when you get a little bit older, and Kevin's not old. He's nowhere near as old as I am. But when you get older, 11 to 14, right now in your life, Faith, 11 feels like 100 years ago. But
True.
when you're older, 11 to 14 is kind of in the same ballpark. So don't hold it against your guy. Uncle Kevin's still a
Yeah.
good guy.
Loves all the same, Faith. Loves all the same. Just slipped my mind. It's crazy.
You were on the spot. You're on camera. Who could be
Yeah, I was on the spot. I was on camera. It was Charlottesville on a Friday night, and I just got scared. I got scared and I said the wrong number.
all right, man. Well, enjoyed it. I'm glad we got back together. We'll be back in this weekly, guys. No more hiatuses or whatever the plural of hiatus is. Hiati, who knows? We'll be back next week with another edition of the Sauce. For Kevin Bauer, this is Irish Schofeld. This is Warchant.com, and we'll talk to you next time on the Sauce.